I thought it might be nice to give anyone who's new to pottery a little demonstration on how to make a pinch pot mug. This is something that I used to do a lot when you first kind of get into ceramics, and then there just becomes a point where you don't really do much of pinch pots anymore. I'm speaking obviously from my own personal experience, but usually this is a very intro level project. So you're going to start with about half a pound to a pound of clay. That's enough to be around like the size of your fist. And you're just going to shape it into a sphere to start out. I always find this time to be really therapeutic, to kind of just like take time to slow down, focus on one thing at a time. Like this is the time you want to smooth the surface. You don't really need to rush this process. Just kind of enjoy it as it's happening. And then you're going to put your finger around 3/4 of the way down into the center of this sphere that you just created. And you're going to slowly start pinching in an upward motion with your thumb and using your other fingers on the outside as support. You can kind of pinch on the outside too, but most of the pressure is going to be coming from your thumb. That outward pressure is going to give you a wider pot, and that inward pressure is going to give you more of like a tall and like skinny pot. And you definitely want to make sure you're continuously rotating as you're pinching. Consistency and evenness is the most important thing here with pinch pots. I can't lie though, my type of pottery is not very neat or tidy. So in this type of process, I'm really just making whatever I want to create. I'm not thinking about the shape too much, just kind of like letting whatever happens here. I also can't tell if I'm like way too concentrated right here, like the furrow of my brow is so intense, or if it's just because it was so sunny. It was like such a beautiful day outside. And I've never actually done pottery out in the winter, or like outside in the winter time, but this was really nice. It was like 20 degrees Fahrenheit, but the sun made it feel really warm. Oh, and I didn't bring any water, so it was kind of useful to use snow to help me smooth out everything with the cracks that were forming in the pinch pot. If you do want a handle, this is the time you'll decide. There's like so many ways to do pinch pots and handles in general, so don't feel like you have to be like too fastened in on one certain thing that I'm doing. There's so many other ways. I'm making a coil by just kind of like squeezing the clay to start into that coil shape. And then I would also recommend like bring a flat surface to work on. Like don't do what I'm doing. Like don't work on your knee. I am just kind of focusing on making a smooth coil, and then you can tell right here I'm also flattening the surface a bit too to kind of shape that handle a bit more. You're going to want to scratch or score, whatever you want to call it, the part of your mug where the handle is going to merge with like the two pieces of clay where they're going to merge together. So I'm just scratching there, and then I'm also scratching down the coil. And then I'm gonna push those two together. I was very shaky hands here and struggling, so just like, let's move on. And then on the bottom section, you're kind of gonna wanna shape the handle how you want it. And then I always just like push and smooth the clay into it itself, and then like the excess clay will just naturally fall off. And then you can kind of focus right there on the bottom section and smoothing it into the main body. birds were so nice too. It was so calming. Around this point, it was getting really hard to work, so I got that flat surface finally. Then you also here want to focus on just like adding a little bit of extra clay to the areas that you just like connected, so it gives a bit of support and balance. You don't have to do this. I just think it makes my handles look a bit more well-rounded out and not kind of like just like patched on. There does become a point though, if you're building this all in one setting, where the clay is just not working well with you. So you just kind of need to give it some time, give it a moment to sit on its own. You don't want to keep working with the clay and kind of ruin your project just because you're forcing it too much. When in reality, you could literally just like give it like 10-15 minutes, like out in the sun. If I'm working out in the sun, it'll dry really quickly, and then you can kind of go back to that work later instead of kind of pushing it and making the clay kind of fall in on itself, or just kind of like make really big inconsistencies in the thickness of the walls. So don't force the clay too much. If you feel like it's working against you a lot, just take some time away from it. It's also really important that you make sure that inside is neat, especially if you're going to be using this to eat or drink out of. The like smoother the inside is, the easier it will be to clean, and also then like that food or the drinks that is going to be inside will not get stuck in there. So that's a really big crucial part of this project. I find it really beneficial to always have one hand supporting the clay at all times if you're not working on that flat surface. You just want to make sure like that clay can easily be moved, so just give it as much support as you can. I think I just got scared there because some snow melted and like made that noise. You can get really transfixed on this part of making sure everything is so smooth and everything is like well supported. So you can tell right here I'm adding just one more little extra layer of clay underneath that top part of the handle to give it some support. Like I said earlier, there does become a point where you just kind of need to give it a break. So I worked on something else while I let this soak up the sun, and it really only took about 15 minutes for me to let it kind of harden the walls a bit, and then I was able to then proceed and keep continuing to smooth things up. So I don't know if you can already tell, but like even by me picking it up and being able to flip it over in 15 minutes, like if I would have done that earlier, it would have just completely squashed into a pancake. So just make sure you clean up all the rest of the cracks that are left over, and then you're all finished. You did your very own pinch pot. I personally would only rate mine probably a 6 out of 10 because it looks like it would be for like soup or something. Like I don't really know if it really is a mug. It's so low. But I definitely will still use it, maybe for like food or something instead. But thank you for watching the video and hope you have a good rest of your day.